about us and more about Steve Bermel. Steve, sir, how are you today?
Oh, doing well. Thanks for extending an invite again after I missed yesterday. I feel awful about that, but glad to just get an opportunity to come right back and be on the show and talk about the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, listen, if I want to first of all thank you. First of all, here's a graphic from producer Joe.
Wow, what
Um,
battering graphic.
yeah, I'm telling you, with the Bills get up there, which I will definitely ask you about in a few minutes here about the Bills as well. It would be fair if I didn't, but I want to thank you and John and producer Trevor. I don't know if he goes by that for having me on WGR. I thought it was only appropriate I bring at least one of you back on. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being the halftime guest. I know it might have been kind of short notice too, and it was great having you on the show and having a conversation about the work that you put in, but also about the game that happened last Friday.
Did John know you were going to ask me the Dane Smith question? Because I thought that was great. By the way, that was a great question.
We didn't talk about that at all. I remember I came on the show after the Bandits finally did it, and I
True.
took the shot when I had the opportunity for that. So, but you're not afraid to say what's on your mind, or stir the pot, or whatever word you want to use, and that's good. I mean, it makes for good engagement. And hey, when Dane Smith makes you eat a little bit of crow, now back to back champion Dane Smith, I'm going to remind you of that just because I have to get a
I
little.
love it. Yeah, Dane's awesome. Dane's awesome. In my prediction, my crystal ball, I forgot what you guys call that part, but I said I should have gone with Ian McKay because he was definitely the star of that show.
With McKay, what was that? With what? Oh, the
I said with my crystal ball prediction that
yeah,
y'all had at the end of it, I said Dane Smith should have gone with Ian McKay because he was awesome.
Ian McKay is having an unbelievable year too, and playing full time offense. I think that was the plan last year, but unfortunately, due to some injuries on defense, losing Bryce Sweeting and having some injuries, he ended up out the back door and playing more of a transition role. Now it's a necessity for him to play on the left side offense because it's only Kluche, Byrne, and Scanlon over there, and Kluche on IR. And Ian has definitely taken advantage of the opportunity he's been given. 2 games with 5 goals so far this year.
I think Pat Gregoire was on the TSN broadcast and said something along the lines of, "Can't win Transition Player of the Year if you keep coming out the front door, Ian."
Yeah, kind of a travesty that he hasn't gotten one the last few years. And it's hard because it's always hard to differentiate who's a defender and who plays transition. Like, there's certain guys that have won it that are defensemen that have a lot of points. I think the bigger travesty, and this is no disrespect to Ian, is that Steve Priolo's never won a Defender of the Year. And between his leadership, his loose ball ability, his physicality,
Yeah.
I think that now at this point in his career, it might be too late for him to win one because he isn't in the same, he's still in great shape, but he's older now. He's not going to have the numbers necessarily, but for a long stretch there, he was an outstanding defender. And they did an offseason interview of players, around the league. And it was like, who would you want to be the captain of your team? And I think he was number one as voted on by
Wow.
his. So just sometimes it feels like the Bandits get slighted, but I don't think they mind when they win championships. And the other part of it too, I think, Mike, is that they don't want to give the Bandits 4 or 5 awards. You're already giving Josh Byrne MVP, Dane Smith winning all his accolades, Matt Vince winning his accolades. It could very quickly turn into the Bandits winning, all 5 or 6 awards. So maybe they just want to have some parity there.
So I won't get into that too much, but I've never liked the term voter fatigue because it's not fair to certain players. But we're gonna leave that alone for now.
Sure.
Let's get back into that Rock game a little bit more. So I know that Rochester took Buffalo for the first 3 quarters the first time they played. Obviously, that's history at this point. But was this the first? This was the first real test for Buffalo. It felt like this year, where they had to really, dig deep because the team was getting to them early. Break down this Rock game for me.
Yeah, record be damned. The Rock match up with the Bandits better than any team. And you think that Jamie Dubwick's been building the team to try to beat Buffalo, right? They've shown them the door in the playoffs for years now and really have been the bane of Toronto's success has been Buffalo. Even when Buffalo was struggling last year, they beat Toronto. They tended to have some success against that team. So the game, the Rochester game, I think a lot of that was the Nighthawks had played a game already and Buffalo hadn't, so it maybe took them a little while. And the cream rose to the top. The better team in the fourth quarter went on an 8-1 run to win by 7 goals, 15-8, if my memory serves me right. This game, it was hard for anybody to go on a run because it was so disjointed with the calls and the penalties, and rightfully so. These two teams play incredibly physical. I feel like if it was a playoff game, 90% of what they called, they would have let go. The officials were trying, I think, to rein it in early, which caused the game to be very disjointed. Buffalo didn't score on their first 2 power plays. It took the major power play for them to get a power play goal, while Toronto did score on their early power plays. So, Toronto definitely matches up well, or are a bad matchup for the Bandits to be, they're not going to blow them out. They're good. Their team is built to hang with Buffalo, and they did. And can't forget getting Challen Rogers back. Not only the guy that, quarterbacks the offense, plays up top, is the shooter on the power play, but also your captain. He'd been out for the year. So getting your captain back, we saw immediate dividends of him playing offense. He even earned a star of the game. I think he was the 3rd star of the game as voted by the media. So getting him back was huge. Ultimately, though, the last laugh goes to Buffalo Bandits, and maybe more specifically to Nick Weiss, who gets into it with Hostrauser, and they're yelling back and forth in the penalty box. And for a lot of Bandits fans, that felt like poetic justice that, after getting into it early in the game, he pots the game winner with 43 seconds to go.
Yeah, I remember for my 3 stars of the weekend, I asked some fans, and I think Nick Weiss was one of the ones they liked. As I noticed it on the Facebook group chats as well. I got to ask you about the Elijah Gash and Zach Belter thing, because that was quite the that was awesome. I'm glad that Belter did what he did, but I was on record saying, listen, the guy got knocked out. It's bound to happen in one of these fights. I thought it was interesting. But have you heard anything about how Zach Belter is doing, and what was your take on the fight in general?
So first and foremost, after the game, talked to Zach. He was okay. He's like, look, I saw it coming. I thought I could absorb it. Just, he's like, he caught me with a good one. It was a good swing. And yeah, Belter jumping in for Buffalo fans upset that Belter got the game misconduct. That's the rule, right? As the 3rd man in, the instigator rule, starting a fight that you weren't a part of, that's the rule. But yes, I was going to say, whether you asked or not, first and foremost, Zach's okay. And that is of the utmost importance. A few hours after the game, he was doing well. We talked a little bit. I agree. There's been other instances where players have stepped up to a fight and, 2 men agree to go. And sometimes you get caught with one. It gave The Rock a bit of juice for sure. But, what was weird about it is it seemed like some of the Rock players had to calm Elijah down. Like, he was so fired up afterward and still like amped up. And, it felt like that Challen Rogers, Nick Rose had to tell him, okay, like, I'm sure the emotions were running high, but had to calm him down a little bit. And, and for the league, listen, you hate to see Zach go down like that, but man, has that gotten a ton of traction, just tons of outlets picking it up, and, the league having interactions with people as a result. So, it's tough to see, because obviously you want everyone to be okay, and you hate to see someone get hit like that. But ultimately, man, did it create a lot of engagement on social media.
I mean, it's possible in hockey. Like, just I said before, when a guy gets KO'd, and I'll use that term, it's like if they both engage in a fight, I guess it's bound to happen one time. And so if it helps the league, I'm sure Belter isn't mad at it either.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I remember Travis Irving decided to step up as a rookie and fight some guy named Paul Dawson. And before he even could swing, Dawson connected and Irving was out on his feet. And he planked. I mean, he was just – so, yeah, it happens. And you don't like seeing guys get dinged up like that. But, as far as if he's okay with it helping the league, I don't know. I didn't ask him that. But, as seeing the amount of traction it got on social media, that part is pretty cool, because we want eyes on the sport. It's so awesome to see.
1,000%. All right, so the Bandits season so far, I mentioned they swept Rochester, beat down what looks to be a competitive Ottawa team, and they're 4-0, leading the league right now and just looking dominant, doing what they want when they want. What is your take on the Bandits season so far and how hot they've started?
Yeah, even in games last year, it seemed like even in games that they would win, they wouldn't come out firing, and they have this year. That Toronto opened up a 2-0 lead, but then Buffalo tied it. They didn't get down 4 or 5 goals, which they'd done in the past last year. And that Ottawa game, I mean, Dunbar scored 30 seconds into the game, and then Buffalo ripped off a 5-goal run, and Ottawa didn't score again until the second quarter. Against Rochester, the second time they played, Buffalo was leading 6-0, and Rochester didn't score until the second quarter. And hey, this past week, when you have Matt Vince playing out of his skull, this past week he didn't play well. He would tell you, he probably would say he didn't play well, and the team picked him up. I mean, he made big saves late for them, but in a night where he made like 27 or 23 saves on 30 some odd shots, they picked him up. The offense carried him. They scored goals and, got that big transition goal from Nick Weiss to end the game. And then, Toronto tries to score and doesn't Matt Vince make a big save and Steve Priolo get a big loose ball. It happened on the Nick Weiss goal and it happened on the empty net goal. So they're a hard team to beat because they're such a complete lacrosse team. You want to run and gun, they'll hang with you. You want to slow play it and play a low scoring game, they'll hang with you, or they're going to put up 6 before you know it. And now that style is no longer an option to you. So, there's not one thing that Buffalo does well. They're great in special teams. They have the best goalie in the world between the pipes, the best to ever do it. 2 MVP candidates up front, and neither one of them is even leading the team in scoring. That's Ian McKay, 13 goals. So
I love that they're complete lacrosse team line. Of course, like you said, Ian McKay leading the team and what he's doing. I mean, especially with an emotional weekend, that was awesome to see for him in general. So we got the upcoming game now. It's versus the Wings, who are on the first part of a doubleheader, the first leg of it for you guys, at least for the Wings part of it. Wings have had an elite power play so far. They offer a guy like Brandon O'Neill, who's also a really sneaky, but he's really good.
Yep.
And so what is your take with the Wings and Bandits coming up this weekend?
The Wings are a good team that can't be underestimated, and they might finally be figuring some things out. They could always score, but now it seems like they're playing like a more complete team. And Joey Resetarits is absolutely incredible, and Mitch Jones on the other side. And then you mentioned Brendan O'Neill. They have some very real scoring threats. And listen, when I'm at shoot around in the morning, there are very few players of whom I hear Anthony Cosmo and Matt Vince speak about specifically. Joey Resetarits is one of them. Look for tendencies. If you see this, he's probably doing this. If you notice this, he's probably doing that. I'm not going to tip my hand any more than that and give anything away, but Joey Rez is a player that teams have to game plan for specifically, and obviously he can take over a game. You've got to be careful. Now, what I'll say is when the Bandits have played Rochester, for the most part, they've shut down Connor Fields. They've made other people try to beat him who didn't succeed. Ryan Waters couldn't score, on the right side for Rochester. They struggled to get scoring from other guys. The right side offense didn't get going. So, yeah, I think Philadelphia is a team you have to watch for, but ultimately the way Buffalo is playing, I mean, I think of Jake Elliott on his podcast that says, until I'm never picking against the Bandits, this entire season, I've refused to pick against them because of how well they're playing. So
I got to ask you, have you heard about anything about Michael Sowers? Because I know fans were asking if we're going to see any Michael Sowers moving forward. Have you heard anything from the Wings side?
No, I have not. We have a call with production on Friday for the broadcast, and we'll meet with Philly Saturday morning. We'll talk to coach and player. We don't have anything midweek planned with Philly, so I haven't heard otherwise. I don't know either way. I couldn't speak to it because I haven't heard, and we have not yet had a conversation with the Wings yet. We always talk to the other team before broadcast, just haven't done it this week yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, by the way. I'm not sure how many games the Bandits are going to win this year, especially in a row, but it looks like they're good for the foreseeable future. And Steve, again, thank you for the whole crew having me on WGR, and thank you for sticking it out and coming on the show today.
Thanks for not cutting me off when I didn't show yesterday. So I appreciate the great and the second chance, and it was great talking to Buffalo Bandits across with you. Go Bills as well.
Oh, yeah. Are you guys going to win this weekend against the Ravens? I was going to ask that.
The Bills are a completely different team. So are the Ravens. The worst part of this matchup for them is the Bills like to let teams run the ball. Go ahead and run the ball, right? Well, we're not going to give up anything over the top. Go ahead and run the ball. We're not going to stack the box. We'll outscore you. The problem is if you let the Ravens run the ball, you can lose very easily because King Henry is no joke. So we'll see if they opt to go with more 4-3, if they opt to stack the box a little bit. I'm certainly nervous about Baltimore, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens won. But, of course, I'm going to pick Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to win on Sunday.
Producer Joe is showing a bunch of Doug Flutie or whatever the crap he's got going on back there, so whatever he's got. But thank you, Steve.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
You too. Steve Bermel, everybody. Guys, that was fun. I'm glad to get him back on the show. First time this season for Steve Bermel. He is great as always, and the Bandits are 4-0.